Hi everyone, welcome to me,
you, and Doctor Who.
Oh my gosh. I am intrigued by this episode we're going to watch because we just finished watching the what is it called? The bumper. And I haven't I swear to God, I've only watched this episode once, and it was like back when I was in middle school. I only remember the ending of it, and it's a very iconic ending. Well, I don't know if it was iconic. It was very memorable. I completely forgot Simon Pegg was in this. If I may ask, what did you think of the bumper?
I'm very curious to see who this editor character is. We were making jokes getting on. Mars made a joke like, when people ask what I do for the podcast, I am the editor. And I said like, oh, I can't wait.
The editor.
I can't wait to meet the villain called social media manager.
We gotta wait a few seasons for that one. Here's what I remember, actually, because I remember that the guy from the last episode, I remember him being there. I completely forgot he was from the last episode. Like, I thought they met this guy on the planet they're going to, and then he hung around with them like a typical side character, you know? Completely forgot he tags along, so he's like can you imagine if he becomes a long-term companion that we just have to stick with for the rest of the season?
This hitchhiking groupie.
Well, we're gonna watch this freeloader and Rose do their thing. This this episode was written by Russell T Davies. I didn't know he wrote this episode. I thought this was gonna be some rando writer. Directed by Brian Grant. I don't know if we've seen an episode directed by Brian Grant. And it is produced by Phil Collinson, who is a familiar name. I think he's produced like most, if not all, the episodes we've watched so far.
Definitely a familiar name.
I mean, I can't think of anything else. This episode was not very memorable to me, and I hope it was, like... I think one thing I will say is that when I was looking at the trivia for the end of the episode, I guess one thing I should warn you about, Haley, it seems very sci-fi heavy. Like...
That's alright. Listen, the sci-fi is there, but that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make.
Yeah. Like, it seems to be less personal relationships and more like, look at this scary technology, bleh.
No, God
I mean,
forbid.
we saw their brain. We saw their brain out. Isn't that crazy, Haley? What the future will come to one day?
Yeah, isn't it crazy that one day we're gonna have AI that writes all our college papers for us and people won't know how to read?
Oh, God, kill me now.
Take me at the doctor. Take me back! Take me back!
I want to go back to 2004. All right, well, if that's all we got for the intro, then I guess we gotta head into this episode whether we want to or not.
No, take me back to Charles Dickens.
You have to be like SpongeBob, like, I want to live.
I want to go to bed.
All right, we'll see you on the other side. Whoa.
Bye.
Trigger warnings for this episode include minor gore/body horror. Welcome back, everyone. We took a very extra long break because I think talking about anything but the episode, I think. We talked about a lot of things, and we didn't record because, well, I guess I recorded on a backup recording, but, I don't know, this episode was okay, I think. It was alright, I don't know, what'd you think, Haley?
Yeah, I was saying in our in-between how I felt like the last episode was so good, like genuinely fantastic, to the point where I knew going in that this would never be able to live up to it. But it was okay. This one was a bit. This was no two-farter. Don't get me wrong. But
Haley, you're saying this is better than the last episode? I think it wasn't even as good as the two-farter.
But you like the two-farter better than this.
Yeah, it's the best one.
Oh. Right, got you, of course.
But yeah, this episode, I think where it excels is in its message. How it gets there is very jumbly. It's a bit all over the place to me, where, like, especially with Adam, like, they keep, his whole purpose is to, like, you know, be the thing at the end of the episode to, like, why the villain knows who the Doctor is, but that's kind of it. So all the scenes he's in kind of feel like him just fumbling around like, I just want to have technology.
I'm a living plot device.
And it's just like, why are you here? What, can you have like an ounce of personality, please? Besides, like, I'm curious and I want to have this brain implant. But yeah, this episode, I think we were in the well, at the point of the episodes released, and from we were in the not so far future in 2012. So this time we're going really far in the future, apparently to the year 200,000, which is still a long ways away from the sun blowing up. What year did the doctor say that was?
Wasn't it like 3 billion or something? I feel like it was a very high number.
Yeah, something like that. Because the new Roman Empire is in 10,000 years.
Mm.
So it must be in like a few billion years that the sun actually for real blows up. But this is the year 200,000-ish. They keep saying 200,000 like right on the dot, but I bet it's not exactly. But they basically land on a satellite called the fifth satellite. No, satellite 5.
Satellite 5, yeah, satellite love.
And they're basically looking down on the fourth human empire is what they call it, with a population of 96 billion, and the doctor calls it I guess the peak of humanity. Like, this is as good as it got on Earth, I think.
Yeah, he called it like the height of Earth or something like that.
Which is crazy because what was it, 10,000 years? Oh yeah, we're past the new Roman Empire, so been and done there. That's not as cool as rectangle buildings on top of Earth you can see from space. I'm trying to remember the plot, but it's kind of so boring that I'm staring at my notes. I'm like, what the hell happened again? There's like a weird comment from the doctor where like Rose is trying to like interact with Adam, who's like freaking out about all this, and he calls Adam her boyfriend for some reason. I think we were both very confused by that.
Yeah.
And he does that again later in the episode, which is kind of weird. I guess we could talk about it in a bit, but we also meet like our NPCs of the episode, which is Kathika and Suki, who are like they call themselves journalists, but I don't think they did any like, I guess, traditional journalist things. I guess the definition of what a journalist is could have changed in the future. But to me, it just seemed like they were just like regular like client employees or something on this satellite. Oh, another thing was that like I thought it was very weird their outfits, especially Suki's, which made I commented this on like while we were recording, but she looks like she's dressed from like a department store. Like she's wearing like a flowery like blossom top or blouse, I should say, not blossom. She's wearing like a flowery blouse, and I don't know. This does not look like the year 200,000. This looks like the year 10,000, actually.
Yeah, I remember you said it looked like she went shopping at JCPenney.
Yeah. But this is basically supposed to be the source of. I don't think they describe it like this in the beginning, but for clarity's sake, this satellite is like the source of human information. It's basically like the main news cycle, that everyone on Earth gets their information from, basically. And they're all on floor 139, and the doctor, I don't know if you noticed, we might have been talking over it, but they make another reference, very subtle reference to Bad Wolf, in this
Yes,
scene.
I did. I went, Bad Wolf TV!
Bad Wolf TV! You were distracted by Bad Wolf TV. I was distracted by the face of Bo is pregnant.
That's right.
And how did that happen? We don't know, and I don't think we'll ever know. I think that was just a gag. But everyone's on floor 139, and everyone wants to go to floor 500. The only thing they describe it as is it's a promotion, and the walls are made of gold. Why anyone would want that, I don't know. The doctor manages to like basically lie his way into like getting information from Kathika and Suki, who basically provide a demonstration of how the little brain implant that they have works. This is like the first appearance of the little like brain implant or whatever. It's not even an implant, it's just like a little hidey hole that you can see the brain through. So I think it is the first time we see it. And then they have like a moment where they're like all frozen or something, and I guess they can't hear like the doctor expositioning, because he basically explains like what all this is to Rose and Adam. I think at the time of watching, it was not told to us like why this was happening. Like the purpose of the implant or whatever is to like receive like a bunch of news information like through the human brain, but the human itself doesn't remember it. So when I was watching it, I was like, what's the purpose of it then? I mean, obviously the purpose is like, to aid the villain or whatever, but what do these people believe the purpose of it is? And I feel like that's where a lot of my interest like slogged a bit, because it kept showing us things that happen in this like lifetime and this lifestyle, but not showing any purpose for why these people would be doing it, which kind of took me out of it. So it's like, so why should I care? Why should I give a crap?
Right.
Question mark. About like, or at least because like it also would give like characters motivation on like defending their lifestyle, because I think that was a big point of the episode later, is that at least for Kathica, you know, I think it represents a lot of like what's happening right now. Crazy that an episode could be relevant to today. That a lot of people in modern society receive a lot of information, don't retain it, and walk around like they know everything. Basically, I wish that
Right.
point was emphasized a bit more in the beginning, because it kind of just felt like they were just showing off sci-fi technology and being like, isn't that crazy? Anyway, because I felt a lot more pulled into the episode at the end when that was like the point being made. And after that sort of experience, yeah, Adam, I can't tell if he's pretending or not. I don't think he is on a certain level, but he is like acting like, oh wow, that really creeped me out. I need a moment to breathe on like the poop deck.
I need a moment to think about this.
Literally. And Rose is like, do you want me to come with you? And he's like, no, not really, it's okay. And then she's like, all right, well, hold on to this, and gives him the TARDIS key.
Yeah, here you go, guy. I've known 2 hours.
Like, I don't like, okay, like, for the plot, there is the reason he has the TARDIS key, so that the villain can like, threaten to take it at the very end. Practically, so Rose gives it to him in case all of this is too much and he wants to go back to hang out in the TARDIS, which I feel like is not the best solution, because I feel like the TARDIS is probably just as overwhelming as this spaceship is, if not maybe like a little bit quieter from people. If like his thing is like with people, there being too much people and too many crazy things going on. I mean, he's still got to deal with the idea of like the TARDIS being bigger on the inside, which they didn't really cover his reaction to that very well, I don't think. So it's still a crazy situation he's in. And also, what if he flies away with that thing? He can't be having that key. Yeah, but after the whole demonstration thing, Suki, the character with the JC Penny top, gets called to get a promotion, because the editor detects that something is off about her, and something is off about her. She's apparently like some sort of like rebel fighter. She's part of the Freedom Foundation, and
She was a self-described anarchist. I remember that.
yeah, that I don't know. Is that so? She calls herself that, or he called her that?
I think he said, like, you're a self-described anarchist, which means that she called herself an anarchist at some point.
Okay, okay. I could still vibe with her. Some, anarchists. Real anarchists know what they're doing. You know what I mean? I think you can't just like disrupt society and call yourself an anarchist. I think you know, despite the name, anarchists have like not rules, but like
Principles.
principles. Yes, exactly. Principles they go by. And so that's probably what her group is like the free, because it's hard, sometimes it's hard to be an anarchist and also part of a organized group, but she's clearly a part of one, and apparently she has been the whole time, and she like aims a gun at him, and he's like, and she's trying to figure out like, yeah, clearly she's one of the people who get a clue as to something weird is going on with like this news cycle. However, she is disposed of rather quickly, and put along with the other like frozen people. By the way, there's frozen people operating the news cycle. I guess I'm not entirely sure how it works, because the doctor explains later that it's like they operate it through like a chip in their brain. But if they're dead, then the only way I could see it working is that they have to remain alive, or at least their brain has to remain alive, so that the chip can be, on, so it has something to attach to, because if it's not powered by anything, it can't, operate. It's a machine. So I don't know how they can be dead, but they're also not dead, because at the end she like reaches out and grabs the villain so he doesn't escape at the end. See what I mean? That all of this is kind of like jumbled. Is like, I don't think the world building was very well thought out for this episode. Like,
Yeah, this episode kind of felt like a first draft.
yeah. Like, it's a lot of ideas bouncing around without like a lot of cohesion, or at least like they had ideas, but they wanted to have this aspect of like a reveal in the end, because that's how you keep an audience hooked. Is like, you have a hook, then you have small reveals like throughout the episode, and then like a big reveal at the end. I think this would have been a little bit better if the reveals happened a little earlier, or if we just knew a little bit more information, like the information we knew at the end, because I don't think that would have taken away from the episode at all, to know that the purpose of this satellite is to be a news broadcaster. This is how Earth receives all its information about the goings on all the planets and on their own planet, basically. I wish that was more clear. It did not feel very clear. Yeah, another thing is that the editor-in-chief is supposed to be the villain. It's like this big blob monster with teeth. And I guess its motivation is to stay alive? And the way it stays alive is to stay in a cold place. And for some reason, in order to maintain a cold place, it has to maintain a news station. Did you catch that? Like, why the alien? Why the? What was he called again? The Jagrafess. The Jagrafess. Why would he want to operate a news cycle?
I'm kind of as lost as you are, bestie.
This is so confusing. Yeah, this episode is very confusing. And then they had this sort of like, one of the like mini reveals at the during like the midpoint of the episode was that like, it was like hard to keep up because the Ninth Doctor was talking so fast, but he was like, something happened 91. Oh yeah, these human beings have like not progressed in technology for 91 years, and how long has this satellite system been up? And then the Kathika goes like, 91 years, and it's supposed to be like this whole like, ooh, gotcha, and just like, okay, we got it, we know, let's move on. And like, while they're doing all this, this Adam, I hate you, Adam. He's just running around trying to get information on like, what was it, like a microchip? Like, what is the technical advantage of like a microchip or something, or microdata?
Yeah, he wanted like an Elon Musk chip implanted in his brain so he could drive a Tesla car. I don't know.
That's his basic motivation. Gosh, but yeah, he can't access the computer, so he goes to get like a chip inside of his brain, and the person there is like, oh, why get a chip when you can get like the brain implant that opens a hole in your brain? And then he has this moment where he acts like this is like a really hard decision, like, oh, how am I supposed to choose between a tiny chip I can't see that can provide, the purpose I want for it, or this gross brain implant that I don't know how this works. I mean, either way, I would not be doing this. This is like foreign technology, 200,000 years in the future, made for humans that probably are not the same as humans 198,000 years ago, biologically.
It was called like an information spike, wasn't it? I thought they were going to put like a railroad spike in his head.
Spike him! I think at this point in the episode, when they start talking about like, the news cycle not being as like cool as we thought it was, I think another thing this episode kind of fails on doing is that it brings up it brings up a conflict of like immigration, conspiracies, all operated by the news station. I think another thing that takes me out of this episode is that, I don't think this is a new concept in 2007, especially because they're covering it in Doctor Who. I'm sure it's meant to like reflect it. It's 200,000 years in the future, and they're still surprised that the news is like biased and feeds you lies sometimes. Like, why was she acting like Kathika? You were pretty cool, Kathika, but why are you acting like surprised that a main news station has its own like biases and like motivations for what information it wants to tell people and what information it doesn't want to tell people. Like, and I think another thing it brings up is that, like, the doctor's like, have you noticed that there's no aliens on this ship? And she's like, not really. Or she's like, I don't know. That's just how it is. And I think they start up a conversation of like, when you are part of the population that the news cycle deems acceptable, you kind of, whether purposefully or accidentally, turn a blind eye to basically the issues of other people who are not looked fondly by the news cycle.
Right.
And therefore, you don't notice that there are no aliens on this ship with you, even though there are no laws against it. Clearly, there's something there's something preventing them from being on this ship. And it's like so surprising hearing this, because it's like, wow, this is just like real life. And they don't really provide a solution to this. I mean, it's like a 30-minute episode, so it's like I don't expect them to. I would hope that they don't bring this kind of stuff up just as a buzzword, like, ooh, we reference the thing happening in real life, just like a lot of sci-fi stuff does. What we're gonna do about it? I don't know, lol. I guess the moral of the story is, like, take down corrupt news cycles, but that's a bit harder than they said it would be, because not all news cycles are operated by a scary alien monster that you can just blast out of existence. Or maybe you can. I can't say stuff like that.
Says who?
Says who? Says the doctor walking out with a sonic screwdriver. But yeah, I think a lot of these points are brought up by the doctor with Kathika, because I think Kathika does provide an important role of, like, representing humanity, like, being basically contently ignorant of, like, problems going on with other people and stuff. And he kind of chastises her for not, like, thinking for herself, and goes like, why can't you be more like Rose? She's a real thinker. She keeps asking why it's so hot in here. And I thought that was a little silly for him to, like, bring up. I was like, all right, teacher's pet Rose, whatever. Because she, like, smiled at the camera after that.
Girlfriend?
Yeah, my girlfriend. They figure out that the heat being generated, it's so hot because it's basically being generated from upstairs and all being pushed downstairs, which I feel like is... Because at this point, I think we're guessing that, the cold upstairs on floor 500 has something to do with the creature upstairs. But it's generating heat, and the heat needs to be pushed downward. But if the creature's generating heat, shouldn't the room be somewhat warm? Question mark? Isn't that what... If it's generating so much heat that it's making an entire floor of a satellite, like, burn up, I don't know. I feel like it should be like a space heater, basically, for that room, and not, like, frozen solid in that room.
Listen, I'm an artist. I am the social media manager. I am no scientist. You could not consult me on any of these matters.
I don't know how any of this works. What the hell? It doesn't make sense. I'm, like, writing all this. It doesn't make sense. I'm, like, putting all the red lines together. Like, none of this makes sense. Really takes me out of the episode if it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think it's very hard to make it make sense. I think what they should have said instead is that the alien monster relies on coal to survive. Therefore, we pump every single, like, not AC unit, but, like, whatever we use to make a ship colder, we pump it all into this room. Therefore, the rest of the satellite lacks any cooling technology, and therefore, it gets really hot really fast. But I think the argument you could say against that is that they're in space, so of course it's going to be cold. What would the heat actually be coming from? But I feel like that makes more sense and easier to wave away than what they told us to believe. Listen, I should have been in that writer's room. I would have fixed everything for this episode.
What were you, like 7 at the time?
Yeah, I would have been around 7, I don't know. But this is about the point where we sort of, like, learn everything is revealed because the Doctor and Rose get called to the 500th floor. And so the villain does his villain monologue. It's Simon Pegg. Ooh, Simon Pegg. And honestly, we said this before off camera, but not off camera, off mic. Yeah, off mic. I think the best part of this episode was also Simon Pegg's performance. I think he did a very
Yeah.
good job as the villain. Very conniving, very evil. So I have to give props to him. I was not super bored when he was on screen.
Yeah, definitely not what I was expecting from this boys prequel, but I can't really complain.
Huey Sr. is up to some dastardly tasks. But he basically reveals like, oh yeah, we control everything, economics, politics, immigration stuff, and it's all controlled by us. Why do we care? I don't know. Control. I think he mentioned like money was a factor. He likes getting money, maybe. I don't know, but why would the alien thing need money? See, why would the alien need money? It's just an alien. It just wants to live. I don't know.
Why do dragons hoard gold? They can't go spend
Yeah,
it. Where are you gonna spend it? The dragon store?
literally, this is literally the problem that it has. But he captures like Rose and the Doctor. The Rose and the Doctor, they're not citizens, so the computer has a hard time deciphering who they are. They have like no identification, no social security number, and it's only when Adam, after he's had this like the spike implanted. And for some reason, I guess because he wants more information, he sits in the chair to get the information spike blast through his head and records it on his phone. Um, every time he calls his mom's house, she's still not home, which is very coincidental to me. Yeah, he tries to like record all that stuff, and as a result, the Simon Pegg villain basically gets all the information he knows about the Doctor, so he knows. I guess the Doctor told him his whole backstory. I mean, unless he told him in the last episode that he's like a Time Lord and he's traveling with Rose Tyler and stuff. I don't know. What's wrong with this episode? I shake the episode. What's wrong with you?
Start hitting your keyboard angrily.
And then, like, the Doctor is like, I would die before I tell you the secrets of, like, the Time Lords or whatever. And Simon Pegg is like, oh, no need. Your friend here has the TARDIS key. And he starts, like, floating it ominously. And then the Doctor's like, Rose! You and your freaking boyfriends! It's like, whoa, dude!
Did you just swear?
No, I said freaking.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh, you think I would swear on this podcast ever? I would never.
Yes!
Not
very
even
much.
once. Gosh, at this point in the episode, I think we both of us were very much like, are we insane? Because I feel like the characters in this show, whether it be Rose, the Doctor, or other like, side characters, keep alluding to like Rose and the Doctor liking each other and like saying they like each other without like any sort of like romantic interactions happening between them other than like I guess Rose like staring at him fondly, but I feel like that's like attributed to, him being a time traveler and her being like astounded by the things he can do, not really by romance. I think the only time we got something slightly romantic was when they were going down the elevator and they held hands. I thought that scene was kind of cute.
That was cute.
I was like, wow, finally, the first allusion to like them liking each other, and it's episode 7 of the season, and everyone's been talking about you guys like each other so much, and it's just like, I think it's been pretty platonic so far. I don't know, they're just a guy and a girl hanging out.
And it seems like they drive each other crazy half of the time, too.
Yeah, literally. They're literally in conflict. I mean, that's their purpose. It's like they're supposed to be in conflict with each other because Rose has a different perspective than him. So therefore, they have arguments sometimes, which makes for good, like, moral quandaries or conflicts. I don't know if it makes for good romantic plot. I feel like a lot of their conversations have been more philosophical than romantic. You know what I mean?
Right. I completely agree.
Which I definitely appreciate, but, I guess they kind of like each other at this point. I don't know. It feels a little bit forced at this point.
She's known him for a total of 5 hours.
Yeah. Like a few days at most, but who cares?
And they've spent 3 of them wanting to bash each other's brains in with frying pans like Tom and Jerry.
Yeah, they're like so like hot and cold with each other, I swear. Also the fact that she's like 19 makes me a little about it. I kind of wish she was a little bit older if they're gonna have like a romance thing together. Like like at least in her mid to late 20s or something. But, whatever, can't have them all. Can't have everything I want, I guess. At this point, Kathika has, like, changed her mind and because she decided she didn't want to go down there with them. But then she changed her mind because she got, curious and suspicious of everything. And now she's down there. And the Doctor's, like, trying to subtly, like, egg her on of saying, like, oh, you expect all these humans to, like, fall in line and basically, walk to their own deaths or whatever. So I think trying to like subtly edge her to like do something, and she does. She sits in her little chair, and opens up her little brain spike or whatever. Um, this part confused me as well. So they said she starts reversing and overriding a lot of the commands and basically getting things back to normal and stopping the villain and stuff. When the Simon Pegg character goes, "How is this happening?" to himself, he says, quote, she's a member of staff with an idea, quote, end quote. And so that's the only reasoning for why she's able to stop everything. It feels very plot device. I have no idea why her being in that room as opposed to the room downstairs gives her more like administrative control over like the entire news station, because they didn't expand upon that. I wish they would have said something like, this is like the this circle that she, or this chair that she sits in, you know, gives you access to like everything on the ship, like admin controls and stuff. But they never say that. There's just a skeleton on the chair, and you're left to assume like, wow, last person who did this freaking died. Which I don't know is what that's supposed to imply, that it's hard to use it. I don't know. It's a lot of like, I think this episode's supposed to make me assume a lot of things, and I don't really know why.
A lot of heat, and yet things aren't being expanded upon.
Oh, how clever, Haley.
Thank you, I'm very smart.
But they win the day. They all run out of there. The Doctor, Rose, and Kathika. And when Simon Pegg tries to get out as well, one of the Suki, who had been frozen earlier, grabs him by the leg, and apparently she is so strong that he cannot escape. And I guess he dies or something. I don't know. They go back to the original 139, and I think the Doctor implies that it's like left up to Kathika to like pick up the pieces of like repairing the news station and stuff. I guess because she's like been working there for years. So it feels like a very not very tightly loose end. It's a loose end, not very tightly wound. If I had to describe it, the Doctor's just like, all right, not my problem anymore. Time to get out of here. In fact, you know what is my problem? And then he just makes a beeline towards Adam, who is like, good thing things turned out pretty good, eh, Doctor? The Doctor's like, ooh, when I get my hands on you.
I really thought he was gonna slug him in the face. Really
Me too.
did.
He lived there. He was like, the camera was framed perfectly for the Doctor to just smack him. But he doesn't. I was gonna say, like, I thought it was a little weird, the reaction, because if I were the Doctor, or if at least I were Rose, and I was trapped in, the frozen floor or whatever, and I saw footage of, like, my new friend, screaming in pain and having a laser blasted through his forehead, I would think he is not there of his own volition. That would be my immediate assumption. I would assume that he had been captured and they're trying to take his brain information. But for the sake of moving the plot forward, I guess, they immediately go, Adam, how could you? You consented to that brain implant, which he did. He did, but he did not consent to him being brain blasted, basically. Which, I think is the point of the episode, though, that he shouldn't have poked his nose where it didn't belong. Or maybe, no, I guess it's more like he should have done, like, more research. He should have, like, learned more about whatever implant he was going to get, if he was going to get an implant, before he got the implant. And so, therefore, he didn't know to the full extent of how it worked, and therefore, it was used against him. And so, when the Doctor is like, this is your fault, or gives him a look that basically says, this is your fault and I'm mad at you now, Adam basically responds, well, this only happened because you were in charge. Which, I do like that line. I wish, for the message of the episode being, when people turn a blind eye, bad things happen, or when you don't take responsibility for stuff, bad things happen. His final line, or his line before entering the TARDIS, going, because this happened because you were in charge, and basically deferring blame to the Doctor. I like that direction for his character, basically being like, this is what happens when you don't learn your lesson. You become an Adam. His whole plotline was so boring though, it barely feels worth it. So I don't know. But they basically take him home and they're like, you are not allowed to travel with us anymore. And Adam is like, well, what am I supposed to do with this, like, brain implant thing? And the doctor's like, I don't know. Don't draw attention to it. And I really think it was stupid on Adam's part to not make the little trigger for his implant opening up something other than, snapping his fingers. I think whistling a specific tune would have been, good for it not being accidentally revealed to people. Like, maybe that's how he solves it. I don't know. This character, I grab at him by the shirt collar. What is wrong with you?
I'm very glad that his arc is done and we won't be dealing with him too much anymore.
But yeah, this was, when I said earlier I only remembered the ending of this episode, this was the part I remembered, was like the doctor and Rose like making fun of his little brain implant and then his mom accidentally snapping it open and then the episode ending there. For some reason, I thought this was a 10th Doctor episode, which is why I was so surprised that we were here already, because for some reason I remember the 10th Doctor being mad at him and being like, I can't believe you've done this, and now you suffer the consequences, with the whole snapping thing. I guess this was a ninth Doctor. I just had my memory rewritten. But yeah, that's the whole episode, Haley. It wasn't a horrible episode by any means, I think, but I think it just was such a confusing episode that it made it a bit frustrating to watch,
Yeah, it was just, for me, it was just kind of dull more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Man, you know what's not dull? Going through trivia facts.
Yeah!
I do have a couple interesting ones. There was one in particular that I thought was very interesting, and then we'll get to it. I mean, we've already covered, like, Bad Wolf TVs was one of the name of the channels. Not very touched up upon in the episode, just that the face of Bo is featured on it. Apparently in production, the head spike was originally going to involve opening the entire cranium opening up, rather than just a forehead like opening. So the whole forehead of like Adam was gonna be opened up like a garage door, I think. Which I think is far more terrifying.
It is.
Because you'd be able to see the whole brain thing. Ew, yucky, gross.
Oh wow, horrors beyond my comprehension.
Thanks, I hate it. There's another trivia point that says that the episode was originally intended to be focused entirely on Adam, with the Doctor and Rose having less screen time in the finished version. Filming started, Russell T Davies saw how good Christopher Eccleston and Billie Piper were. He felt he really couldn't justify sidelining them and wrote them to give them more to do. Which I feel like is a crazy point, because it felt like Adam wasn't doing anything this episode.
I know, I kind of wish Adam wasn't in it.
Yeah, I feel like this episode would have been even more boring if he was the focus of the episode. But it's so funny that Russell T Davies is like, wow, the actors I like are doing things I like. I guess I should put them in the episode more. I mean, it's a fair bias. I think they were the most entertaining part of the episode. I'm glad they got more things to do. I think they probably helped save it. But another point, I'm not very surprised by this one. It says that the episode has the dubious distinction of being ranked as Doctor Who magazine readers' least favorite Ninth Doctor story in all three of their major polls held since airing in 2009, 2014, and 2023. This is a 3-time loser episode.
This one's more of a loser than the two-farter?
Apparently, I think the two-farter is worse, if I'm being honest with you.
Okay, I wanted to make sure that we were joking before, because I definitely think the two-farter was my least favorite so far. This I did not think was far levels.
Yeah, because you know what? At least this was one episode. Unfortunately,
exactly.
As per the name, the two-farter was a two-parter. And we had to deal with that for 2 whole episodes, which is horrible. At least now, like,
even without the farts, it did not need to be 2.
It really
did.
Long. I was more invested on like what the hell was with that pig astronaut guy, and we never learn about him. We never get to know who was he. He was so cute. This isn't like the episode I was telling you about at the beginning of our podcast when I was like, this is the episode that fans hate, but it seems like this is the episode of the season 1 that fans hate. But overall, there is a certain one or two episodes. There's one in particular I think of, and then recently I was reminded of a second one. So I will bring it up when we get there, but again, I still want to see if you can guess which one it is. It's not this one though. I'm surprised how low the score was for this episode because I think the save like I keep saying this, but the saving grace of this episode is like the messages it has, and I really appreciate the message. Okay, this trivia just made me laugh a little bit. It says that Adam has the dubious distinction of being the first and, to date, only known companion to have his TARDIS traveling rights revoked by the Doctor due to bad behavior.
That's funny. You got put in timeout.
Literally.
Due to bad behavior.
It's crazy that it says that, like the first and to date. I think that basically implies that of, like, the 50 years that the show has been running, Adam is the first one to get put in timeout, TARDIS timeout, basically. Which is crazy. Like, imagine being such a bad human that the Doctor just is like, you cannot walk into this, into my ship ever again. I would just live in shame for the rest of my life. Like, I would never let that happen to me. I would be such a good companion.
You gotta go off the grid. Oh yeah, I would have an amazing report card at the end of my semester.
Yeah.
As a companion.
It's so funny because it went on to list like the various ways companions like leave, and you know, I'm not gonna say them as to not spoil, but it's like, yeah, that's true. The reasons like that companions leave have nothing to do with them having bad behavior, which is really funny. He's just a bad companion. He's a bad boy. But the final trivia point I have, and this is the one I thought was very interesting. So the original motivation, apparently, for Adam, which I feel like they really should have kept in, because I would have made his character and, you know, obviously motivations stronger, which was that the reason he was looking for technology, or, like, for futuristic stuff, was because one of his parents basically had, like, arthritis or something, or had some sort of, like, medical disease that he was like, well, there's no cure for it where I'm from. We're 200,000 years in the future on Earth. There must be a cure at this point. And the Doctor sort of like deters him from, like, you know, looking into it. But that's his whole thing, is that he wants to try to bring technology to his family members to try to help aid them and cure their diseases. That kind of information is like, especially to someone from like our, you know, decade, it'd be priceless. So I would, if that was his motivation for the episode, I'd be like, hell yeah, Adam, get your information. I'd kind of be on his side a little bit, I think.
And that would have been so easy. Like, they could have just thrown in one line.
Yeah, it didn't.
To make it so much more compelling.
It's really not that hard. It's because when he has, his only motivation seems to be like, I want to know more about technology. And that's such, it's such weak writing, I should say. I don't want to be rude I mean, Russell T Davies apparently wrote this episode, and I know he can do better than this. Maybe it was the director, I don't know, because I don't think we've seen this director on an episode of Doctor Who before. I think it looked like a fairly new name to me. I don't know. I really felt like that would have just made us understand his character a little bit more if he just had a stronger motivation like that. But that sort of goes along into the trivia point of, like, I think this was meant to be a part of it, or maybe he was just motivated by this, but apparently there was a bit of a spin-off comic based on Adam a little bit. Or more of like Adam was like a twist villain at the end of this comic, because it's basically implied that he resents the Doctor for kicking him out of the TARDIS, and the comic explains that he had an ulterior motive beyond like personal gain when he plotted to cash in on future technology, and he wished to save his ailing mother with its advanced medical capabilities. So that's why I think the 2 points tied together. And they were like, you know what, we changed our mind. He is motivated by medical stuff, and it's just like, I think it's a little too late at this point. But due to the antiquated technology in the 21st century, his mother soon died, leaving Adam alone, even though they said he had a dad in the episode, but whatever. So he seeks revenge on the Doctor and every companion with whom he regularly travels across during his different incarnations. So he becomes like a villain like much later in like these sort of spin-off Doctor Who comics, which I am aware exist, but I've not read any like short stories, whether it be like a novel or a comic that has to do with Doctor Who. They're usually stories about like his in-between like episode times. Like, they'll usually feature, like, a specific doctor being like, oh, well, in between this episode, I was doing this. Because I do think there is implied time in between episodes. I know we joke about, like, the Rose has known the doctor for, like, 5 days. I think
Yeah.
realistically, she's probably been traveling with him about a month, probably.
Okay.
If we're talking about, like, my real opinion, I think it's, like, probably a month-ish. There's probably adventures we haven't seen, like when I think about like adventures like that, it's probably like mini adventures, stuff that's like not very consequential to either the main plot, or it's like it was like 5 minutes. They like visited a planet for like 15 minutes and they were like, kind of boring. Bye, and it's like not enough for an episode. But that again is also a lot of my imagination doing the work for them, which I don't really want to do. But that's what the comics and novels are for, basically. And I do believe Adam is supposed to be like a twist villain or something, and at the end of one of the comics being like, "Oh, I've been following you the whole time, and I'm really mad at you," and it's just, I don't know, I can't get behind the evil motivation unless you have the whole medical thing happening with his like mom or parent or whoever it is, because that's what makes him understandable. But they decided not to have that in the actual, canonical episodes, so it's like, what are we here for? What are we here for, dude?
This episode reminds me a lot of Disney's Wish, in that like they had all of these really cool ideas that they just wound up scrapping, and the final product kind of feels like a first draft, or just like it feels like it's been stripped of everything that could have made it compelling.
Well, because, like, the whole thing with Wish, right, was that it had, like, a really cool original draft, and then they decided to scrap it for whatever reason. Everything cool I heard about Wish has been from, like, the concept art of, like, the couple being, like,
Yeah.
an evil couple, and the star being, like, a star prince who, like, falls in love with the main character, which sounded really cute. Um, I haven't seen that movie yet, just because I know it's gonna be, like,
Yeah, you shouldn't.
not a waste of, I think I would have more fun watching it with like you or someone or some of our friends or something. Like watching it by myself, it would feel like such a chore. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I would make it worth your while for sure.
Thank you. But yeah, I think it sucks when like media has this problem of just like, it seemed like perhaps maybe the script was like rushed or something. They couldn't get all their ideas out at the right deadline or not. I don't want, this is me not wanting to be like mean to anyone in production in the writing room or whatever, because I know, writing for stuff like this is pretty hard. And maybe there was a deadline issue or something. I can't say that I have not been a victim to deadlines, or
Haven't we all?
some sort of outside force that prevents me from like making my work go to its like fullest potential. But it's very disappointing, this episode. Like, it had a lot of stuff it could have done and it didn't. I hate to say it. What is your rating for this episode?
I'm gonna give this 5 rushed boyfriends for Rose's polycule out of 10.
Oh my gosh. Let me think. I have to contemplate this.
I know, that's a hard one to top.
It's always I have to think of something. I have to think of something funnier than you.
No.
It sucks because I can only think of one thing and I'm like, that thing's not funny enough. But I guess I have to say it because this episode was kind of boring. I can't think of anything else. I'm gonna give it 3.25, so 3 1/4 brains visual, brains visible by snapping your fingers out of 10.
I for sure thought you were gonna say like 3.25 Simon Pegg as Mr. Snow Miser or something like that.
That's really funny. I wish he said that. Because I would have never thought of that, but he is basically the Snow Miser of this episode. Him and his best.
I mean, if it helps, I literally thought of that like 5 seconds ago.
He's the Snow Miser, and the big alien glob thing is like the Heat Miser. I think another thing about this episode, the alien was not very memorable. It was just like a glob with a mouth on it. I wish...
It's a pit bull.
It didn't look like it needed to be cold. It actually looked like it needed to be warm, because it was very fleshy, There are like animals that... There are animals or creatures or whatever that you could base off of that like are more prefer to a cold environment. This was not. I don't think the alien design was a bit lackluster this episode. I did not particularly like it, but whatever, I guess. Yeah, that's how I give it. Below average, but not as bad as it could have been, I guess. Well, Haley, I guess we gotta play it out.
I hate to say it, the two farter aliens, just the aliens in particular, were better than this alien.
Yeah, if those episodes have anything over this episode, is the alien designs. Those were pretty good, and I liked how it was like a full body suit. They felt very unique. You know, if you asked me in like a month's time to like describe the aliens from that episode, I'd be able to. If you, I'm probably gonna forget what the alien looks like from this episode. I'm gonna be so honest with you.
I already did.
Yeah, it's already gone. I need to replace it with better memories of stuff.
Forget everything you know. Done.
Yeah. Easy peasy. Done.
Next one looks like it's gonna be a lot better.
That's true. I am very excited about the next one. We'll definitely talk about the bumper like in the next episode. I remember this episode is probably gonna be, I think it's gonna be decent. I don't remember having any complaints about it from last time I watched it, because remember at the beginning of this episode I was like, the fact that I don't remember anything of this episode feels like a bad sign, you know, like as in it was not very memorable. I do remember multiple scenes from the next one though, so I think from what I remember, it's like okay and pretty good at a lot of places, and it's like okay at other places, but I don't think it was bad per se. But it has interesting concepts, of course, and I'm very interested to see how it goes. And the little beasts that are in this episode.
Yeah, the chupacabras.
The flying chupacabras. Alright, well, we'll see you guys next time. Hopefully on a better note.
Don't let the Jersey Devil hit you on the way out.
Oh my gosh, here he comes now. What did you guys do? Alright, bye.
Not helping ya. This is your fault. See ya.
Hey guys, thank you for listening to our show. This was created by me, Julia, and Haley Doherty. The cover art and the thumbnails were illustrated by the two of us and edited by me. Episodes edited by me and social medias run by Haley. The theme song and other sound effects are by half.cool. You can find us on Instagram at me_you_and_Doctor_Who, on Twitter at me_you_and_dw, and on TikTok at me_you_and_Doctor_Who. You can find this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Thank you for listening. Bye!